I believe that we are all here striving to create a new narrative for us to find a way to come together in peace in the world, to find global harmony, global peace, and a way to sustain our planet. And I think we've made a lot of progress in the last few years, because 20 years ago, we would never be getting together like this. People from different religions and spiritualities would not talk to one another. People from different countries were very separated from one another. Now we're coming together very rapidly. And I've had the opportunity to go around the world and observe how this comes together in many different places. And the newest narrative that we've come up with is that we are all part of the human family. So now we're looking at diversity and pluralism as being a good thing, because we are now a human family. But I actually don't think that that narrative goes far enough. And so I've been thinking about what is a narrative that ties us all together that is even more powerful than that we are all a human family.
This is a story about the god Diansecht, who was the god of healing. And one day he started to hear reports that his son Miach was a better healer than him. And after 4 or 5 people had started to report that his son was such a powerful and wonderful healer, he started to feel jealous. Even though he was a god, still he had this failing of feeling jealous. And he decided that there was only one way he could solve the problem, which was that he had to kill his son. So his son, Miach, came to see him one day, and he said, "My dear son, I love you very much, but you have exceeded my reputation, and therefore you must go." And with that, he took his sword out, and he slashed him across the body. His son looked at him, and then just with one hand was able to heal himself with a smile. And so, with the next sweep of the sword, he chopped his head off, and his head fell sideways, but his son just smiled at him and put his head back and healed himself. So for the third blow, his father took the sword, picked it up, and smashed him right through and cut him in two. And so he fell apart, and unfortunately he wasn't able to revive himself. Now, sister Ymid saw what had happened, and weeping, she picked up the body of Miach, and she buried him in the ground, and she covered him with earth. And she sat by his grave for day after day after day, weeping into the ground, watering it with her tears. And slowly, she started to notice something was happening. She started to see that flowers and plants were growing up where she had buried her brother. And suddenly she noticed a pattern, that there were different flowers and different plants growing at different parts of the body. So she saw that there was eye bright, the herb that is good for curing the eyes, were growing where his eyes were, and so on. And she realized that Miach was teaching his sister, was teaching her from beyond the grave, his art of healing. Gradually, 365 plants grew on the ground. And she started to take her cloak, and she laid her cloak out on the ground, and she picked the herbs, reproducing the image of his body on the cloak. But at that moment, her father appeared, Diansecht. He realized at once what his son was doing, and so he took the cloak and picked it up and threw it up in the air so that all the flowers and the herbs rained down on them, and they were scattered. And this is the story that explains to us why our knowledge and our tradition has been scattered, and how the work that we have today is one of putting it back together.
What is secular? In the United States, it literally means church and state are separated. We do not talk about religion at all in the government. We are not allowed to open our governmental meetings with prayers of any kind. Now that is beginning to change. At the local levels, people are beginning, especially through interfaith work, which is why I'm so strong in interfaith work right now. People are beginning to ask various religious leaders of all faiths come in and offer prayers and open meetings, which is very, very important, because this is where we see that there is really not a great difference in religions. There are some differences, though, and it depends on a very personal construct of what you believe in and how the universe was formed. And there are some things, for instance, within the Christian religions, when I was learning about them, I studied religion as a young child, and some things just didn't ring true for me. They weren't comfortable for me. And that's fine. They don't have to be comfortable. I can find another place that is comfortable. Everybody should find their own level of comfort. That's why there's different religions. Different religions should not be designed to separate. They should be designed so that every individual, because we all have so many differences of opinion, of idea, that they should be designed so that everybody can find their own place of comfort.
We have seen prayers, we have seen talks, and we have seen people, activists, leaders, desperately trying to preserve what may be left of their traditions. And this is extremely inspiring because, as my teacher said yesterday, Swami Dayanandji said yesterday, unless we have a conference like this, we don't know that the Vikkans exist. We don't know that the tribes, the various tribes of Arunachal exist. We don't know.
Greetings, the family. I must go back and talk about my colleagues that spoke about the suppression of things that happened to us, Māori colonization. And this is what happened to us, was the language. My mother and my grandmothers and my grandfathers were not allowed to speak Māori at school. And they were all cloned. And as I grew older and older, then I realized my mother spoke like this to the man on the other side of the counter, Pāria. And he would say, "Hello, Mrs. Taniwha," and he would say, "Hello, boss. Would you like some meat?" "Yes, boss." As I grew up, I realized that my mother was cloned from colonization. And the sad thing about it was when they were not allowed to speak Māori at school, Māori, we adapted that. We grew up with that knowledge that we spoke English at school, and we were cloned to speak that. And now today, we are looking for methods to bring back our language like you.